Justice and Power, the story of a judge and a white man. The year was 1965, and the small southern town of Riverton sat on the fault lines of a rapidly changing America. Civil rights protests rippled through its streets, but the old guard clung tightly to its traditions. The courthouse stood at the center of town, a symbol of law and order, or, depending on who you asked, a monument to oppression. Judge William Cartwright had presided over that courthouse for over 3 decades. With his salt and pepper hair neatly combed and his black robe draped over his shoulders, he was a picture of authority. To most white townsfolk, he was a man of wisdom and fairness. To Riverton's black community, he was just another cog in a system designed to crush them. One summer morning, the courthouse buzzed with anticipation. Samuel Turner, a 23-year-old black man, stood accused of stealing $200 from a cash register at Miller's General Store, a popular establishment owned by Tom Miller, a prominent white businessman. Samuel had been at the store on the day of the theft, but he swore he had taken nothing. Witnesses were scarce, and evidence was thin, yet the weight of accusation alone was usually enough in Riverton. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Whites filled the front rows, their eyes cold and expectant, while Riverton's black residents sat in the back, their faces somber and resigned. Samuel stood at the defense table, wearing his best Sunday shirt. His public defender, Andrew Mathers, was fresh out of law school, nervous but determined to give Samuel a fighting chance. Judge Cartwright entered the courtroom, and the murmurs fell silent. As he took his seat, he scanned the room. He had seen the scene play out countless times before: a young black man on trial, a white community demanding justice for an offense they'd never forgive. But today felt different. There was something in Samuel Turner's eyes that unsettled him. The trial began. Tom Miller, the store owner, took the stand first. He described how he had noticed the cash missing shortly after Samuel left the store. "I don't know who else it could have been," Miller said confidently. "He was the only one near the register." Andrew Mathers cross-examined him. "Mr. Miller, did you actually see Mr. Turner take the money?" "Well, no, but..." "And isn't it true that the register is in a part of the store visible to other customers? Couldn't anyone have taken it?" Miller frowned, his confidence faltering. "I suppose it's possible, but Samuel was acting suspicious." "How so?" "He lingered," Miller said, grasping for words. The prosecutor leaned on these vague notions of suspicious behavior, painting Samuel as a petty thief with no respect for the law. When Samuel took the stand, he spoke clearly and calmly. "I didn't take anything. I went in to buy bread, paid for it, and left. That's all." Under cross-examination, the prosecutor tried to rattle him. "Why should we believe you, Mr. Turner? Haven't you had trouble with the law before?" Samuel stiffened. "I was arrested once for loitering. I wasn't doing anything wrong then, either." The prosecutor smirked, turning to the jury. "Once a troublemaker, always a troublemaker." As the arguments unfolded, Judge Cartwright found himself torn. He prided himself on being impartial, but he couldn't ignore the unspoken rules of Riverton. A black man accused by a white man was guilty until proven innocent, and sometimes even then. But deep down, he knew there wasn't enough evidence to convict Samuel. That night, alone in his study, Cartwright wrestled with his conscience. He thought of his father, a staunch segregationist who had drilled into him the importance of preserving the way things are. But he also thought of his mother, who had once told him, "A man's character isn't measured by his comfort, but by his courage." The next day, the closing arguments were delivered. The prosecutor demanded justice for Tom Miller, warning the jury that letting Samuel walk free would send a dangerous message. Andrew Mathers, in his closing statement, appealed to their humanity. "This case isn't about race, it's about justice. And justice demands evidence, not assumptions. Samuel Turner deserves the same fairness you'd expect for yourselves." When the jury returned after deliberating, the room was silent. The foreman handed the verdict to Judge Cartwright. He read it aloud: "Not guilty." Gasps filled the courtroom. The white spectators erupted in outrage, shouting accusations of bias and betrayal. Judge Cartwright struck his gavel repeatedly. "Order! This court has spoken. Samuel Turner's family wept with relief, while Samuel himself sat motionless, his expression a mix of shock and gratitude. As he was escorted out, he turned and met Judge Cartwright's gaze. In that moment, something passed between them, a quiet acknowledgement of the risk the judge had taken. But the story didn't end there. In the days that followed, Judge Cartwright faced immense backlash. Angry letters poured into his office. Tom Miller and other prominent white businessmen demanded his resignation. His home was vandalized, and whispers of threats reached his ears. But for the first time in his career, Cartwright felt at peace. He had spent a lifetime upholding laws written by men like his father, laws that perpetuated inequality. But now, he realized, the law was only as just as the people who enforced it. By choosing to follow his conscience, he had taken a stand not just for Samuel Turner, but for the principles he had long ignored. One evening, as he sat on his porch watching the sun set over Riverton, Judge Cartwright opened a worn notebook. He began to write, "Power without justice is tyranny. Today, I began to understand what it means to be free." In that moment, he knew he would never be the same. Let me know if you'd like me to expand on any part of this.